necessary for their body, what use is that? Even so, faith, if it has no works, is dead, being by itself. So helping someone who has a deep, genuine need, more often than not, requires us to break some plans that we had. Take time away from other things that we wanted to do. Even pull some money out of the bank. In other words, it's inconvenient. And that diversion of our time could take a day, a week, even a month of showing up until you've accomplished what was needed to truly help them. Serving God by serving others demands putting an end to passivity and its evil companion, complacency. One of my favorite magazines that I get at home it's a Christian business journal called the Plain Communities Business Exchange. And the April edition had an article on dealing with complacency in the workplace. It's speaking to how a business owner deals with employees and sees complacency starting to become a problem. So sometimes the complacent attitude is with the employees who've lost their zeal to work hard and put out quality work. But other times the complacency is actually with the business owner, where he's lost his enthusiasm for the business, or he's not paying enough attention to safety measures, or letting a disruptive employee ruin the morale of the other employees. So this complacent attitude can continue until some crisis hits. The owner finds himself unable to make payroll because his work is drying up. Or an employee has a serious accident because safety was just a side thought. Or half his employees quit because they've had enough of a disruptive employee's behavior. Among other things, the article encourages business owners to address minor signs of complacency when they're first observed. Don't let them get worse, because the earlier complacency is addressed, the easier it is to resolve. And that's actually likewise good advice for spouses, for parents, and for church leaders. So to combat complacency, we should be self-starters and self-motivators. Because if we simply wait for a crisis to instigate change, our lives will be characterized by one crisis after another. We can understand this dynamic with how we deal with our vehicles. If we neglect changing the oil and doing other routine maintenance, we won't think about our vehicles until they stop working, and then it becomes a crisis for us. Complacency in personal matters brings the same dynamics to our life. Waiting until relationships get really bad and are at a crisis level before paying the matter any attention. So how does God respond to us being passive about where we need to change? Like a loving father, Hebrews 12 notes how God disciplines us for our own good. Breaking into verse 5, you have forgotten the exhortation which is addressed to you as sons. My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor faint when you are reproved by him. For those whom the Lord loves, he disciplines, and he scourges every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you endure. God deals with you as with sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? But if you are without discipline, of which you have become full partakers, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Furthermore, we had earthly fathers discipline us, and we respected them. Shall we not much rather be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time, as seemed best to them, but he disciplines us for our good, so that we may share his holiness. All discipline for the moment seems not to be joyful, but sorrowful. Yet to those who have been trained by it, afterwards it yields a peaceful fruit of righteousness. So if we are unwilling to be proactive, our loving Father, he seems to allow crises to arise in our life, to nudge us where we need to go for our own good. But how much better would it be if we're proactive, if we're awake and purposeful in our lives? Ephesians 5:4 says, awake, sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. Therefore, be careful. In other words, look around, see what you're doing, be aware. Therefore, be careful how you walk, not as unwise men, but as wise, making the most of your time, because the days are evil. So then do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. So if complacency is such a disruptive thing in our life, how can we fight it? How can we fight complacency? If complacency is a state of being comfortably unaware of things that we ought to be dealing with, and passive when we should be proactive, then one way of combating complacency is to be purposeful. To be purposeful. Another article in the PCBE was about being purposeful with your business, to make sure that you are aiming to please God with your business. Now, the suggestion was for businesses to have a mission statement as well as boundaries as to what type of work you're willing to engage in and what type of business associations or perceived business associations that you're willing to allow. 1 Thessalonians 5 says, but examine everything carefully, hold fast to that which is good, abstain from every form or appearance of evil. So when we just kind of float along and have no boundaries, we can find ourselves chasing after mammon instead of chasing after God, which leaves us vulnerable to being lured where Satan can ensnare us. There's a construction company in town that has either a tenant or it's a sister business that's selling marijuana products. And the first time I saw the two signs on their building, I thought how bad that looks. I had visions of pot addicts working for the construction company and how that could affect the quality or safety of their job. Now, I could be wrong, but the appearance of evil associations is certainly there. If that construction company was run by believers in God, I'd have to say having a commercial tenant like this next to their shop is a clear violation of the principle that's taught by this passage. When you're in the realm of perceptions, you're getting into opinions, which means not everyone will have the same one, which is why it helps to pay close attention to the words the Holy Spirit used in this passage. Words like everything, carefully, every form or appearance. But examine everything carefully. Hold fast to that which is good. Abstain from every form or appearance of evil. This points to a thorough, careful thought process, where if you were to err, you'd want to err on the side of caution. So how else can we fight complacency? By appreciating the necessity of effort. Appreciating the necessity of effort. Complacency generally dislikes effort because things that need to be addressed, sometimes they look too big to tackle. So if they're too big to tackle, why even try? Jesus said, with faith, we can move mountains. So you might be thinking of Mount McKinley, but the mountains in our life are things that we think are too formidable to even lift a finger to solve ourselves. So we learn to live with things that we shouldn't, and we end up doing nothing. So here's our friend, Holy Hydraulics. You don't need to do it all by yourself. Jesus said, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. So a yoke connects two beasts of burden so that they can work together. But the implication is that we are working with Jesus, who overshadows our abilities with his supernatural strength and abilities. But we still need to work beside him to get things accomplished. It's not a process where we're to be passive in, but rather one that requires our effort. This is where I came up with this notion of holy hydraulics. A backhoe, it can move tons of material, but you still need to put forth the effort to start the backhoe. Let the hydraulics warm up, position the machine, lower the outriggers, and you start moving the control levers. We move our mountains we started out by praying, then doing something that contributes to moving whatever mountain that we have in life. Holy hydraulics means that you put some kind of effort. You put forth some kind of effort in order to get God to see that now you are ready to change. And then his power kicks in. So I'm going to wrap up this sermon after one more illustration on the danger of complacency. And this is going to be a physiological lesson. It's about the body, okay? With a spiritual application. So they've said sitting is the new smoking. Sitting too much destroys the body because God made us that we should be moving, twisting, walking, lifting, stretching as part of our daily routine. And the body deteriorates and it's not going to run well when we're inactive. So complacency is akin to our mind that's loafing around in a lazy boy chair, which weakens our spiritual walk. Bones, this is getting into some really amazing design by God. It just blows my mind that people who go through medical school can't believe in God sometimes. I don't know how you can do that, but bones, they actually have a piezometric feature in them. Now, piezometric means that when you squeeze on something, there's a crystal, a piezometric crystal. You squeeze on it, and actually the act of squeezing on it creates a little electric currents. They use that in scales and stuff, like running trucks over for scales or such. Anyway, the bones have a piezometric feature in there, whereby putting the bones under stress, it causes tiny electric currents to initiate new bone cells to build up new bone at the point where the bones are being stressed. And it does this in order to strengthen them, to meet whatever challenges the bones face. In other words, stressing and moving our bodies makes the bones stronger. This is why bedridden people can eventually lose the ability to stand up on their own, because laying around causes bone loss. Also, our lymph system, it relies on the squeezing of our muscles to push the lymph throughout our lymphatic system, which helps to combat disease and sickness. Being passive and complacent goes against the way God designed our bodies and our minds to be. So my point in saying all of that is that you break complacency simply by breaking it. Do something that contributes to your goals, that contributes to where you want to be spiritually, relationally, physically, and occupationally. Don't just sit around putting it off or thinking things are out of your reach. Do something. And after you break that inertia, moving forward is going to be much easier. So I kind of some simple thoughts, but I hope maybe they were helpful to somebody tonight. If you have any need, now as we sing the invitation song is a good time to come forward and state that need to the congregation so we can help you and pray with you.
Rise from supper is offered. We'll sing number 344. 344, low in the grave he lay. We'll sing all those verses, all three verses, and then the refrain just at the last verse.